Welcome to the second video for 7.3, adding and subtracting rational expressions. So as you can see from this example, we're moving into the area where my denominators are not the same and I have to do something to make them the same. In this particular case, it's pretty close. If you look at 7 minus x and x minus 7, those are really a lot alike. The only difference is that they're different order, and subtraction, that's important. Dealt this before. What could I factor out to make them the same? Well, one of the things we can do is I can factor a -1 out of this one, and then they're the same. Well, now if I have -1, I can try to multiply to get the same denominator, but there's another thing that I can do. A -1, and this only works for -1, can just kind of slide up here and actually change that to just subtraction instead of addition. So now I have the same denominator and subtraction. So go ahead and pause the video and finish subtracting these. Well, hopefully as you did that, you recognize that I can just subtract the tops. Don't forget to distribute the negative. If you do that, you get -21. Otherwise, you get a polynomial that is prime that can't be factored. But this can be. Go ahead and pause the video if you made a mistake and go ahead and factor it at this point in time. If you work through it, you'll notice it's x minus 7 and x plus 3. So we cancel, and we end up with x plus 3. So let's move on and let's try another one. So again, I don't have the same denominator. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to find lowest common denominator. One of the things that may help you to do that, if you do a little bit of factoring, I can then look at this and say, okay, what's my lowest common denominator? Well, they both have a 3, and they both have an x. And then you say, what's left over? Well, from the first one, I have 2x, and I have another 3 from the second one. So a total of 18x squared. Now, so let's go back to our original fractions. What do I need to multiply this by, the denominator by, to get to 18x squared? And remember, anything I do to the denominator, I have to do to the top, or else it does not keep it balanced. So I multiply this by 3 over 3. That's going to give me 18. Well, my second one, what do I have to multiply this by? Well, the 9 has to be multiplied by 2 to get 18, but the x, I need another x. So I have to actually multiply this by 2x. Now we can just multiply those fractions, and we end up with 21 over 18x squared and 4x over 18x squared. I now have a common denominator. So what do we do at this point in time? Well, we just add the top. And a brief examination, the numerator cannot be factored. Clearly not the same thing as the denominator. Therefore, we're good. So let's move on. Let's try another one. What about these? So I want you to ask the question of what is your lowest common denominator? Hopefully you found it. You notice that both polynomials are prime, so I cannot factor them anymore, because all I'm looking at is the bottoms. Well, since they're prime, then my lowest common denominator is actually one of them times the other. Since they have nothing in common, I can't factor them. It's just the product of the two of them. So what do I have to multiply this first fraction by so I have that same denominator? Well, it has the x plus 1, so just missing an x minus 1. But again, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. Then for this one, what do I have to multiply to get the same denominator? Well, it's got an x minus 1, but it's missing the x plus 1. So I multiply it like so. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and multiply out those numerators, and then see if you can go ahead and add them. Go ahead and pause the video and work through that. Welcome back. So first, when I multiply it out, I get 3x minus 3 and 5x plus 5. And again, how do I add numerators? Well, I just add them as they are. And notice, as you do that, 3x plus 5x is 8x. And minus 3 and plus 5 is positive 2. But don't just kind of stop there. You really need to ask yourself the question of, can I factor that numerator? And you can. There's a greatest common factor. Specifically, I can take 2 out. Now, even though I can't simplify, by going to this extra step, it helps me see that there's nothing that will cancel. So if you don't take that step, you're more likely to miss something that could be simplified. So please take the time to do that. All right, let's do, we have several more examples still to go. So I want to do some subtraction. So I want you to stop for a minute and ask the question of, what is the lowest common denominator? Go ahead and pause the video and find that. Now, as you're doing that, hopefully you thought, well, what's my denominator of 1? Well, it's just 1 over 1, which means my lowest common denominator is just x plus 3. Just x plus 3. So I don't need to change my first fraction. Perfectly fine. But my second fraction, I need to have this in x plus 3. So whatever I do at the bottom, I have to do to the top. So multiply by x plus 3. Now, if I multiply that, notice I have x over x plus 3 minus x plus 3 over x plus 3. Now, if you've gotten to this point in time, I want you to pause the video and I want you to finish doing the subtraction. Okay, now hopefully you just subtracted the numerators and then remembered I got to distribute that negative, and I end up with negative 3. Ignore that second parentheses over x plus 3. So this is how all this kind of fits together, is by just slowly breaking it down, find the lowest common denominator, and then multiplying to get that common denominator. Okay. So what about these? Can you find the lowest common denominator of those two? Go ahead and pause the video and find it. Now, hopefully, when you're thinking about this, the first thing to do that we've done before is to factor them. And can you factor them? Oh, indeed you can. So if you didn't do that, go ahead and pause the video and don't just multiply them together. Factor them and then find them the lowest common denominator. So if I factor the first one, notice it turns into 4 times y plus 4. My second denominator turns into y times y plus 4. What's my lowest common denominator? Well, they both have a y plus 4. And what's left over? 4 from the first one and y from the second one. So, or another way to write that, and often we write it in this form, it's perfectly fine either way, 4y times y plus 4. Now, let's look at this first fraction. What do I need to multiply this by in order to have that lowest common denominator? Well, hopefully you're saying y over y. And for our second fraction, what do I need to multiply by to have the lowest common denominator? Well, only 4. And just like that, I get y squared plus 2y. And then as my numerator, the other numerator is 8. So if I have my two numerators, I now have a common denominator. How do you add these together? How do I subtract, I should say. So go ahead and pause the video and finish working through this problem. Well, as you work through this, you can just do subtraction. The nice part, it's only one term over here, so it's really easy to do subtraction. But then you should recognize you can factor that. Specifically factors into x plus 4 times y minus 2. Sorry, y plus 4, not x, and y minus 2. Now notice the y plus 4's cancel. You're just left with y minus 2 or y, 4y. All right, here's our final example. I want you to pause the video and I want you to work through this thing, finding the lowest common denominator, multiplying it out, multiplying it, and then combining by adding and subtracting as necessary, and then simplifying. Go ahead and go. All right, so hopefully you've already done all the work, and you're just coming back to check your process. Again, the first thing we can do is we can factor. And notice I factored the first one, so I had the denominator factors as such. But notice this one, again, I just did the same manipulations we did earlier. I pulled a -1 out. And again, that means I'm just going to change this to subtraction, so I don't have to deal with that -1. I don't like having a -1 as part of my denominator. Now that I have it this way, what's your lowest common denominator? Well, it's 2x minus 3, and all that's left is x plus 1. Again, so if you made that mistake, go ahead and pause the video and rework it. If you did do this, now notice I don't need to do anything to change my first fraction. It has that lowest common denominator. But my second one, it's missing this x plus 1. So let's multiply by x plus 1. If we multiply that out, be careful here. I have x squared minus x minus 2. Now I have to multiply this out before I can do any subtraction, because we couldn't do any adding and subtracting until we had things multiplied out before. Now the subtraction, notice I'm not even putting parentheses around the first set, but I am on this one. And then I can distribute that negative as such. Combine like terms. We'll notice the x squared and the x squared go away. This minus 2 and minus 2 go away. I'm just with x, which obviously I can't factor, and it's not the same. So I just leave the denominator as it is. You do not need to multiply that out. All right, I hope all those examples help. Please be careful. This is a section that really trips people up. This chapter in general, because people don't like fractions, and I understand that. But think about it and just go back to your fraction rules. How did you do this when it was a fraction? And just think about factoring as well. And that will help you as you walk through these and help you not get tripped up. Good luck. Please let me know any questions you have.